We're talking today about resilience. So you've probably seen with children that fall down, and let's say they bump their knee or something. Sometimes they look up and kind of search the eyes of the adults in the room. They do like a scan, and then they decide how they're going to feel about the situation. So they'll start crying if they feel like everyone's giving them a lot of attention or they're not getting enough attention. And so many wise parents have decided that when their child falls down, they're going to minimize the situation and not make too big a deal out of it. And so the kid will fall down, and then the parents will just say, "Oh, hey, ha," and they'll cheer, or they'll say, "Oh, you're fine. Oh, you're fine. Get back up." And they notice very many times the child is able to actually change the way that they respond. Instead of crying, they're able to just get up. They must feel some pain, but somehow they're able to get over that pain that they're experiencing because the adults in the room are signaling that it was no big deal. They get up and they're able to continue playing. And so these wise parents are helping their children to build this this quality of resilience. So what really is resilience? Now, the definition of resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. The capacity to recover quickly from what we may go through. That's resilience. The capacity to recover quickly. Are you a resilient person? Do you feel like you have the capacity to recover quickly? Is it the tendency for you to go through something, experience something traumatic, difficult, scary, and you're able to get over it and just start skating very quickly after? If you feel like maybe you're not as resilient, resiliency is something that can be built. So you can make the change right here today. You can make a decision that you are a resilient person. And just like that child that falls down and wants to know how to feel, you just simply need to teach yourself a new way to feel when you go through a difficulty, when you experience a traumatic event. You must teach yourself a different way to feel so that you can have the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, so that when you fall down, you are able to rise, which is an acronym for resilience is superior every time. So, can you rise after you fall down? The opposite of resilience would be weakness, permeability. Someone who is not resilient tends to be easily shaken up, changed by what they experience. So imagine a person's driving down the street and they see someone dart out in front of the car. If that person is not resilient, then they will become rattled by the situation. And 5 minutes later, they're still in this heightened state of anxiety. Oh my gosh, that was so scary. That was so scary. And 7 minutes later, they're still, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, that was crazy. And 9 minutes later, they're still, oh, I just feel really thrown off. They remain changed by the difficulty or by the scary traumatic event. So to be resilient, we have to be able to experience a traumatic event, but remain unchanged or be able to change back, recover quickly. So what that would look like is a person who's in that same situation, they're driving their car, someone darts out in front of the car, you dodge to miss, but then you stay calm and you simply say, that was a close one, and then you keep on going. You have the personality to be able to remain calm in heightened situations, or maybe you do spike in the moment because it was scary, and you swerve and everyone's safe. But a resilient person would then be able to calm themselves down. They would be able to recover from what they had just experienced. So after going through that, they would simply, oh, is everyone okay? Okay. Wow. That was scary. All right. We're all right. And then they continue. So that 3-4 minutes later, how you doing? I'm good. You good? Everyone's good, right? They are calm because they are resilient. They're able to recover quickly from difficulties. So do you have this quality? And if you don't feel like you have that quality, how can you gain that quality of being able to remain calm or being able to recover quickly if you do become spiked? When we're in that, when we stay changed by our trauma, by our experiences, or when we stay heightened in the distress, that typifies the unhealed state. That typifies us being unhealed. When we don't have the ability to bring ourselves down from something traumatic or something scary. So it's remaining stuck, remaining changed, remaining sensitive, remaining hurt as a result of an event. That is where we have what we call trauma. The definition of trauma that I created, because no one seems to have a very clear definition of trauma, is trauma can be anything that is distressing and causes an undesirable change. Trauma can be anything that's distressing and causes an undesirable change. Those three components there, the distressing component, the change component, and the undesirable component. So you see, if you're doing something that's just distressing, it's not always traumatic, right? It has to have all three things. Like you can be exercising, and just merely exercising your muscle can be distressing on the system, but it's not trauma. In fact, it's actually good for your body to exercise. On the other hand, you could be doing something that causes a change, such as thinking that your loved one has gotten hurt in an accident and you're calling them and they're not picking up their phone, and then it heightens your stress, right? And so you're in this change state, but then the loved one walks through the door and they say, I'm fine. Everything's good. I wasn't in an accident. Well, now you're no longer in the change state. Now you're able to calm back down. And so as a result, you are not traumatized by the situation because you're able to calm down. You're not staying in that change state. Or if something is a change, but the change is undesirable, that's the qualification of it being a trauma. Whereas if the change is not an undesirable change, for instance, if it changes me that my parents kick me out of the house, but what it changed is that I become more responsible. I become someone who works harder and really takes ownership of his own future. I become a better person as a result. Then it's not a trauma, right? I'm not traumatized by the event. It actually did change me, but it changed me in a desirable way. Does that make sense? So in order for something to qualify as trauma, it has to be distressing, it has to change you, and it has to lead to change in an undesirable way. So you see, when you're remaining stuck and hurt and change, when you remain sensitive, that is triggerable, all that is what creates trauma. Now, the reason why this is so important to understand it more from that technical standpoint is so that we can understand how to be untraumatized, because we have the ability to go through situations and remain untraumatized by these situations. Or if it does traumatize us temporarily, we can be resilient and recover quickly. Yes, we have the ability to recover quickly from trauma. That is the essence of resilience. And there are some people who are just more resilient. That is why there is not one thing that is definitely a trauma for everyone. Just think about it. Not everyone is phased the same way by the same event. Everyone went through the pandemic. And of course, the experience wasn't the same for everyone. But not everyone was traumatized by the pandemic. Some were. Probably everyone will experience the loss of a loved one, but not everyone is traumatized by the loss of a loved one. Some are. Many of us have been hurt, robbed, assaulted, beat, but not all of us are traumatized by that violence. Some are. How is it that some people are resilient and not remaining traumatized by what they go through, while others are remaining in that traumatized state? Well, it comes back at the core to the same definition that I just discussed. Those resilient people understand how not to remain distressed by what happened. The resilient people understand how not to remain changed by what happened. Or if they do change, they understand how to make the change a desirable change so that they actually become better as a result. Although we may automatically be affected by a traumatic event, to be resilient is to choose not to remain hurt, to choose not to remain sensitive, to choose not to remain changed. That's the difference. It is a choice. Perhaps in the past you didn't know the skills, and that's okay. But now we're learning the skills so that we can remain unchanged, or we can make sure that we are changed in a desirable way. And that's what we're discussing here. How exactly we can do this? How can we remain unchanged, unfazed, untraumatized by traumatic events? Because as we discussed, it's not the event that is the trauma. It's not the event that causes the trauma. There is no universal trauma. Like, well, if this happens to you, you will definitely be traumatized. That doesn't actually exist. And so you can throw that out. Any notes you have from other trauma specialists that say, they said things like, well, there's big traumas and there's little traumas. Is this a big T or a little T? Crumple that up, throw that in the garbage. That doesn't exist. You don't know what a big T and a little T is in someone's life. I've talked to clients who have said, I said, well, why do you feel traumatized by this event? They said, well, I learned that this is something that is a very big trauma in someone's life if that happens. Listen to the language. I learned that this is something that is a big trauma. So you feel traumatized because you learned that you should feel traumatized by this. A lot of our fear comes from the feeling or the belief or the fear that we won't be able to handle what happens to us, that we won't be able to regulate again, that we will remain changed. That's our fear. Our fear is that we will be traumatized. But when you've learned that certain things will definitely traumatize you, that causes you to fear more. But if you understand the truth that I'm telling you today, which is there is no event that is an absolute trauma. Just like trauma can be anything, also anything can also not be traumatic. A person can go through anything and remain untraumatized or recover quickly from that trauma if they have the skills. And yeah, it comes down to skills. It's ability. Some people figured out resilience early on. We don't know how. They picked it up in childhood. Maybe it was great parents. Maybe they just had the right circumstances. Maybe there's some genes, whatever. It doesn't matter because resilience is learned. You learn to be resilient, whether you learn it in childhood, whether you learn it as a teenager, whether you learn it when you're 30 or you learn it when you're 50. So you can learn to be resilient. How do we do it? How do we overcome being changed? How do we heal from what we've gone through? This is the part in action movies where the protagonist will go into a training montage. You see, they got into a car accident or they got badly hurt in a fight, right? And they decide they won't remain as a scared person. They decide they won't remain as just this scarred person who's just in this crippled state. And so you see them going through the montage. They may have to relearn to walk. They may have to practice their fighting skills, and they're punching the punching bag, and they're jogging, and they're running. They're training the body, training the body, training the body. They have the montage, they got the music playing, right? They glamorize this, they make it look really easy, right? And then they come out of it stronger than ever. And now they're ready to go back and face their opponent again. This is an archetype in many films. It's an archetype for a reason, because it's a pattern in life. Because these are the greatest stories. It's the stories of the people who have gone through things like you. You are the ones with the greatest stories, the survivors. The survivors are the very definition of the term. It is amazing that you are here. You are like one of the people that was storming the beach in Normandy. Bodies are falling down at your side. And as you're moving forward and you're actually running and stepping over bodies, you may ask yourself, why me? How am I still alive? If all of these other people didn't make it through the situation, how is it I'm still making it through the situation? We have a lot to be grateful for as trauma survivors. But we cannot simply remain as we are. We cannot be triggerable. We cannot tell everyone, don't say that, that triggers me. Don't do that, that triggers me. We have to get into a healed state. We cannot live our lives, oh gosh, I can't drive my car again because I got into a car accident. I can't go into my house again because something bad happened to me at my house. I can't go outside because something bad happened to me outside. Well, you can't go anywhere. We cannot remain that way. We must overcome. We must be resilient. We must rise, because resilience is superior every time. So we have to do the same thing they do in the training montage, where we got to do it with the brain, because the brain is what changed in our case. With psychological trauma, the brain is what changed. The amygdala became hyperactive, so it's all enlarged. And the prefrontal cortex, the actual, the logical center, the emotional control center, becomes shrunken. And all the energy goes away from the prefrontal cortex. So we have to change the energy of the brain. So we got to do our own training montage, right? It may not look as glamorous as punching a punching bag, swimming in a pool, and running up hills. But in our training, in our healing montage, we need to learn to shrink the amygdala and enlarge the prefrontal cortex. How do we do that? Meditation. Meditation, meditation, meditation. Meditating, analyzing, critical thinking, developing critical thinking skills, and developing the skills of assertiveness. That's our training montage. Us meditating, pausing to think. That's what meditating is. Us using critical thinking skills. Critical thinking is analyzing data. It's being logical and strategic in our choices. That's critical thinking. Analyzing data. It just means thinking in a non-emotional, technical manner. That's how we need to analyze things in our life. And we need to develop the skills of assertiveness, right? Can you see how these three things can help us to become resilient? When you know how to meditate, when you make the choice to meditate, what you're doing is you're pausing. In that pause, and believe me, your meditation doesn't need to be a half hour long. You just need to meditate for a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes sometimes less. And you're taking a moment to reorganize the energy in the brain. Because what happens when there's a trauma, right now, someone walks through the door and they start yelling at me. What are you doing? Why are you there? What's going on? What I need to do is pause and allow the energy of my brain to shift from the amygdala, which is a survival instinct, to the prefrontal cortex. Why? You see, because if I don't pause, then I'm going to be in survival mode. Survival mode is fight, flight, fawn, freeze. So you will see me get up and punch the guy who walks in. Well, that wouldn't be good, right? Then I get called crazy. But what happened there? Why did I become violent? Because I went into fight mode. Why did I go into fight mode? Because I was in the amygdala, right? I was in survival mode. That's what happened. Flight, then I get up and I start running. That wouldn't be good. There's really only one entrance and exit in this room. That's not logical. I go into fawn. And I just, oh my God, whatever you need, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Right? We got a lot of fawners, so we know it's always, I'm sorry. And then, or I go into freeze. And they're sitting there, they're talking to me, and I don't say anything. I'm just, right? So if I just take a moment and I pause, I use the skill of meditation. For instance, the rule of 7 seconds. So the person comes in, what are you doing? What's going on in here? And I just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I look at them. I say, I apologize if I've done anything wrong. I'm having a meeting right now. Can I talk to you after the meeting? And then everyone here who's watching will go, wow, you handled that so well. How did you do that? You're brilliant. No, I just was using the right part of my mind. You're brilliant too. We're all brilliant. We are all brilliant. You have to use your prefrontal cortex. Every single time I work with a client to help them to regulate the nervous system, which is a fancy way of saying to feel less stressed, they have done the brilliant work. Because when we go into step 3 of the job process and they're giving the advice to their friend or family member, the brilliance is coming out of you. It's not me telling you, hey, well, don't worry, there's other fish in the sea, and I'm giving you all the advice. That's not what's actually happening. You're giving yourself the advice because you are brilliant, and that's you in the cerebral cortex, the wise mind. So get into your wise mind. And as a result, you will be more resilient. Get into your wise mind. How? Meditate. Meditate. What does it mean to meditate? It means to pause and think. Should I clear my mind when I meditate? No. You need stuff in your mind. You just need to organize your mind. Do I need to sit in any special way when I meditate? No. Doesn't matter what you're doing while you meditate. Just pause and think. Just meditate. Can I play music while I meditate? As long as it doesn't distract you from pausing and thinking. Pause and think. That's what's important. It's not important if you play music. You don't have to get fancy with this thing. Just pause and think. You need to build the skill of defaulting to do that all the time. All the time. A resilient person pauses and thinks constantly, all the time. When you're at parties and people ask you those hard questions that you don't feel like answering, like you don't have a job right now, and they're like, so what do you do? Pause and think. All the time you need this. Mom, can we go to the park? Can we go to the park? Pause and think. All the time you need to use the rule of 7 seconds. It pulls you out of trauma mind. It allows you to have wiser answers. The trauma answer to, so what do you do? Oh, I'm in between jobs right now. I went to school, but I never finished due to some things. I had a child really young and it wasn't my fault, but I do take responsibility. Oh my God. And then you're going home I hate myself. I hate who I am because I just made such a fool of myself at that party. I was talking so much. Pause and think, and you'll have a more intelligent response. So what do you do? 1, 2, 3, 4. I do what I can. Ha ha ha. Oh my gosh, you're so funny. Yes, indeed. Yeah, actually, I'm in between jobs right now. What do you do? Oh, well, I do such and such. Bam. You have superior answer when you pause, right? So let's get you out of trauma mind and let's get you into the wise mind by using the skill of meditation. Along with meditation comes breathing. And so I'll let you in on some cool breathing techniques because breathing is by far one of the easiest but most effective ways of calming your physiology in the moment whenever you're in a potentially distressing situation. I use breathing proactively. So as soon as I notice I'm in kind of a serious, technical, distressing situation, I immediately go into my breathing technique. I do it automatically. I don't have to think about it. I just do it. The Navy SEALs use breathing as a way of keeping themselves calm because they go into very stressful situations. So we need the training to be able to handle stressful situations because you don't have to be a SEAL, a Navy SEAL, to know that you're going to encounter things that spike you. So as soon as you notice you're in a situation that is distressing or could be distressing, you want to immediately go into a breathing technique. What I like to use is a slow exhale. And so I'll just pull in air, and going through the nose or mouth. But then I exhale through the mouth and I blow very slowly for about 6 seconds or so. It's not about the amount of seconds that matters, but what it is that I'm controlling the airflow. And as I do that, I'm slowing my breathing. When you slow the breathing, the energy in the brain slows down. It allows you to stay focused and calm on what you're doing. It looks like this. And it slows everything down. Go ahead and try it. It slows everything down. So use this if I'm skiing, and I can ski at an expert level, so I don't recommend people do this. But if I'm skiing through obstacles like trees or something like that, going at such a fast pace, it's dangerous, right? So I realize I'm in a dangerous situation, so I need to stay focused and not panic. And so as I'm skiing, I'm blowing out slowly, just blowing out, keeping the the air controlled and calming the energy. I'm slowing everything down in here so that I can maneuver skillfully, so I can stay in my logical, analytical mind and process the data quickly. Or if I'm on my scooter, then I'm darting in and out of traffic and people are opening their car doors. It's the city of Chicago, right? And I don't want to hit anyone, but I want to stay on my course. Very quick breathing technique. And it works wonders for slowing you down, slowing down the energy of the brain very quickly. I'm doing this to remain untraumatized by what I'm doing, unheightened. I'm keeping myself from spiking. It's proactive. It's proactive. You're always going to feel a little something, but don't become distressed by what you're feeling, because then we're stressing about the stress. Take control. Control the breathing. Slow it down. Right? Also, we need to use critical thinking, which is analyzing all the data and being in our logical mind, making a choice based on all the data that's in front of us. When we're critical thinking, it shrinks the amygdala. The more critical thinking we do, the less emotional we are. The less emotional we are, the less reactive we are, the less fear-driven we are. The less fear-driven we are, the more healed we are. It's a key to resilience, critical thinking. And then, of course, learning the skills of assertiveness. Being able to speak up and assert ourselves changes the whole energy dynamic around us so that people learn to respect us and our boundaries don't get violated as often. This is very important so that we're able to remain in a healed, calm, regulated state so that we don't have to be constantly violated all the time and feel like we can't connect with others and then have to run and hide from others, but then have an anxious attachment where we feel lonely, then we're not with people. When we're with people, we feel distressed. Instead of all of that, we avoid being distressed at all by being assertive. There's no situation that you cannot handle. So let's change our thinking. These techniques are what you need to calm your nervous system. Therefore, you have the ability to regulate yourself. Therefore, you do not have to fear fear. Things will happen. Distressing situations and moments will come up, but you do not need to fear the fear. Maybe you will feel some distress. Maybe you will go through a traumatizing situation. Someone could harm you or assault you or just frighten you, make you feel like they're going to do something. But it's okay because you have the skills to keep yourself regulated. You can handle it. You can handle it. You will use your meditation. You will use your breathing. You will use critical thinking. We have tools like the JOT method. And you will regulate yourself so that if you do become distressed, you're able to calm down. If you do become changed, you're able to change back. And if there is a change, and it's undesirable, you're able to make it into a desirable change. That's to look at the same situation and say, how can I become better as a result of what's happening to me? Instead of become worse. If there are triggers, we need to diffuse our triggers. How do we diffuse the triggers? Exposure. Expose yourself to the trigger, either mentally or physically, again and again and again. So if you got in that car accident, get back in your car, drive it again, drive it again, drive it again, until you're able to do it with a calm nervous system. Why would we do the very thing that frightens us? Because you have to retrain your subconscious mind. It's your computer system. To retrain the mind and say, nope, we're not going to remain traumatized. I am making a choice to be resilient. So although we got an accident and that scared us, we are going to do this again. And you'll be behind the wheel Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. But then you use propitious thinking. I got this. I can handle this. I am capable. Speak to yourself. Assure yourself. This is going to get better. This is going to get easier. I'm doing well. I got this. Over time, it will become easy to drive again. You will be back on your horse, which is where that term came from. It literally is an old Western term, meaning when you fall off the horse, don't become someone who's scared to ride the horse again. Why? Because then you don't have any transportation. That was your car back then, the horse. If you fall off the horse and you don't ride it again, then you're done. You're just going to be one of those people who has to walk everywhere. Don't limit yourself with all these triggers. Don't limit yourself. You're afraid of going outside? Good. You know just what you need to do. You know just where you need to be. Outside. Start small. You have agoraphobia? Go to your porch. Sit out on your porch. Then, after that becomes calm, then walk out to the walkway. Stand out on the walkway. Once you're calm there, go out on the sidewalk. Stand on the sidewalk. Once you're calm there, go to a busy intersection. Stand in the intersection. Once you're calm there, go to the mall. Sit in the mall. Once you're calm there, go to the state fair. It doesn't stop. You push yourself. You retrain the computer to get back on the horse. We can use this skill to go beyond just resilience in terms of getting past trauma. You can use it to develop new skills and abilities by facing the fears, facing the very things that scare you. Just do it. You can take it slow, or you can just rip the Band-Aid off. But you have to remain in it. You have to sit in the difficult circumstance until your system calms down. And you do your breathing, you do your meditation, you do your critical thinking, and you will diffuse the trigger. Now imagine your life with no triggers. It's wonderful. Imagine your life with very little to no fear. It's wonderful. You are limitless. You can do anything. You are capable. And that might not be easy, but it is essential to be resilient. Because resilience is superior every time.